Hi everyone, welcome back to Rewind and Replay. I'm Adrianna.
I'm Caitlin.
And I'm Matan. Given the recent events in the US, the murder of George Floyd and all of the protests under the banner of Black Lives Matter, we wanted to spend this episode talking about Black people in games and in terms of creators and characters. I think we were going to start off with the big one, the one that comes to mind, I think, for most people, Telltale's The Walking Dead.
Rest in peace, Telltale.
They're back. They've been revived.
They are.
Revivified.
They have been. But we were deprived.
Yeah. Especially that last season of Walking Dead. That was a little sad.
Totally. I was really scared. I actually really liked the last season. I was so scared that they were going to, because they closed halfway through, and I was so scared that they just were never going to finish it.
Yeah, that was scary.
But, and one other thing we should mention, we have video now. So if wherever you're listening to us, you could be watching us on YouTube.
See our faces.
We won't complain about wherever you're listening, though.
Yes.
Walking Dead. There were, in the game, in the series, there have been 4 playable characters. Lee, Clementine, Javier, and Michonne. And 3 of those 4 are Black, and all 4 of them are people of color, which is sort of unheard of and unprecedented.
Yeah, it's really awesome. I mean, when I started the game, I really didn't know much about it. I was just a huge Walking Dead fan. And then I started this, and I was like, wow, this is an incredible game.
Yeah, I mean, when I first started playing, when I heard about the game, I was like, oh, it's not going to be following my favorite characters from The Walking Dead. I was like, do I really want to play it? It's like a new cast. And then I started, of course, and I fell in love with Clementine immediately and everyone else. But I think it's so, I don't want to say tricky, but so smart of them to take The Walking Dead and capitalize on that and do something about Black Lives Mattering. I mean, stealth mode activated.
That's my favorite kind of adaptation that The Walking Dead did, where it's its own, the games are their own story, with references and slight ties into the source material, but it is very much its own thing, and that's what I love. That's why I loved Watchmen, which is also very important at this time, but we're focusing mostly on games for today.
Yeah, and I think Robert Kirkman, who writes the comics, I think he does a great job of having this diversity in his comics, and I think he started them a long time ago, like 15 years ago. And I think he kind of realized along the way that he made it very white heavy, and that's why he started including these other characters. And I think that's why he wanted the leads in these games to be people of color, because he realized that he did that so much in the comics. And he did a great job later on of bringing in these characters that were people of color, but I think at first it was very white, and that's why he did this. And I think it was incredible for him to realize that, and then for the series to just kind of adapt over time and become more diverse.
Yeah, I mean, I think especially with media, even 10 years ago, and it's still now, right? Everything's so whitewashed. It's still not, super normal to be following a Black character in a show, a movie, whatever. Although I think, we've done a great job recently. But always what we want to do, is keep ourselves accountable. And like you were saying,
oh, you're breaking up a little bit there, Adrianna.
Great that he did that. I'm happy with The Walking Dead.
Adrianna, can you repeat what you just said?
Woo!
Broke up there.
Where'd it cut out?
But
just right at the end.
Hold ourselves accountable, and then we lost.
Yeah. And like Caitlin was saying, I'm so glad he did that, because The Walking Dead games turned out fantastic for it.
Absolutely.
Totally agree.
I've got, that game, I mean, again, one of my all-time favorites, season 1. I really didn't want to play it. I was not a big Walking Dead. Zombies scared the crap out of me. I did not read Walking Dead. And a friend of mine watched a Let's Play, and he was like, dude, you have to try this. This is in middle school. Which was I was in middle school, and I think he might have bought me the first episode. It was just $5. And I promised I would play just one. I would play at least one. And I was horrified, but I just like fell in love with it. Those characters are so vibrant and compelling. And like somehow, this is, I think, really hard to do. Telltale gives you an immense amount of choice in who your characters are, who Lee is, your playable character, but also made him feel like a defined individual. And I'm not really sure how they did that, but they got the best of both worlds.
Yeah, and like in the later seasons when you play Clementine, and like at the end you get like your bio of her and like how your Clementine is. I thought that was really awesome. That it was like you got your own version, but at the same time there was like this defined character that everyone knew.
Totally.
Michonne is badass.
She was badass.
I haven't played her miniseries, but I love her in the comics.
Yeah, haven't read the comics, but I watched the show for a long time until I stopped because, I don't know, life. And I remember, I was young when it started, the show, but Michonne was always like super strong, super badass. And I was like, fuck yeah. So I was really excited when her miniseries came out.
Yeah, it was good. It left a little room to be improved because it just felt rushed. Like they had a cool story to tell and they had some great characters, but they only made it 3 episodes, and I think that they should have committed to a smaller story or to a bigger season.
When does it take place?
Oh, there's a time skip I don't know. I've read the comic of Walking Dead now.
Mm-hmm.
There's a big time skip during which Michonne kind of takes off.
Okay, is it like when she goes like with like on like the sea stuff and like on the boats? Oh, okay,
on the boats. A lot of boat stuff in that.
Okay, cool. Yeah, I remember the time jump in the comics and like she comes back on the boat, and I thought that's where it took place, but I haven't played it. I should. It looks fun.
It was great. Unless you guys have something else you wanted to add. I'm just realizing I forgot to start the stopwatch, so I'm gonna have to manually go through and get timestamps. That's gonna be fun. Next thing up is Man of Medan.
Before we do that, I think we want to talk about my fucking gabies. Javier kills me. I die. I ship him and Jesus so much.
It's Jesus.
It's Jesus.
I'm gonna say it how I say it.
But he's after like Jesus from the Bible.
Yeah.
I'm used to saying Jesus. I am used to saying Jesus because I am Hispanic and that is my default. But yes, Jesus Christ, superstar.
Because he looks like Jesus.
Yeah.
He does. And I ship it.
Clementine is bisexual and Javier is bisexual.
The real question, though, who did you guys pick in season 4?
Oh, easily Violet.
I
love Lewis.
Lewis was everything. I love Lewis.
No, but I love Lewis too, man. But but Violet just, there's something about her. There's this. It felt like she and Clem had this like really profound connection. Like I don't know. She really warmed up to Clem. Kind of, we got to see when her shell cracked, and there was like, I was interested to get to know her more. I love Lewis.
Violet was incredible, but I love Lewis.
That's Telltale's strong suit, characters.
Yeah.
And AJ, another black character.
You can always go back and play both and pick both at the end.
Exactly.
So. True. All right, now on to Man of Medan. The 3 of us played this game together. Caitlin had already played it, but Adrianna and I, first time all together, passing the controller around, which is a fantastic mechanic, I must say. I love that. What a party game.
Terrifying party game.
Terrifying. Really.
No, we shouldn't have been playing at nighttime.
It was so fun.
But it was so much more fun.
So let's say who we played. Well, for those who don't know, Man of Medan is a sort of similar to Telltale. It's like a choice-based third-person adventure game. Tells the story of a group of tourists exploring a abandoned World War II ship, and some supernatural elements may be involved.
Yeah, and they like get kidnapped and like brought on that ship from like a group trying to find some gold.
And so all of these 5 main characters are playable. And at the beginning of the game, if you're playing with multiple people, you put your names in, and then you select characters one at a time that you get to play. And so if I was playing as my character, I played as Fliss, and as I was playing, then after my scene was over, it would say pass the controller to Adrianna, and then she would play her one of her characters. So yeah, I played Fliss. Who did you guys have?
I played Julia and Brad. Yeah, that's his name. Yeah, Brad.
Who's Brad's brother? I'm totally blanking on his name.
Alex.
Thank you. I played Connie and Alex.
And of those 5 playable characters, 3 of them are Black.
Mm-hmm.
I just realized we each got one Black character to play.
Yes. Yeah.
That was not on purpose.
You're right.
Alex and
I'm glad we did.
Mm-hmm. Alex and Brad are American, and Fliss was Haitian.
Yes, I believe so.
And it was, well, I kind of talked a lot about Walking Dead. If one of you guys wants to go on about what we said about.
I vote Caitlin because she's played this game like a million times.
I played it 3. It's a short game. It takes like 5 to 10 hours to play through, depending on what choices you make. Yeah, I mean, it's an incredible game. I think it does a great job of just normalizing having Black characters and like different roles. Like you have Brad, who's like the geeky brother, who's like he gets seasick, and then Alex, who's like kind of the macho older brother who likes to dive, and like he's getting married to Julia, and then Fliss
or maybe
is, like,
not.
Or maybe not, yeah, depending on what you choose. And then Julia, or Fliss, who is the captain of the ship, and she's like this badass woman who like is like in charge of everything.
She is French Polynesian.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I was gonna say she speaks French, but I couldn't remember where exactly she was from.
French Polynesian.
Yeah, and like even the like villains in this game, I believe there's 3, and 2 of them are Black, 1 is Asian. And so it just does an incredible job of just like normalizing having characters of like all types. Like it doesn't make a stereotype of any of them. It makes them, they all have depth. Like we all had different characters that we were in love with, and like we all like wanted to fight for our characters to stay alive. And I think it just does an incredible job of just making sure that like no one's a stereotype and no one is like one-dimensional. They're all, each character is very like lovable and 3-dimensional, and they have flaws and they have things you really like about them, and I just thought it was incredible.
Yeah, because we only played it the one, or me and Matan only played it the one time, we didn't get to see a lot of Conrad because I don't know what we did. But
it's so hard to get him on the main ship.
Because but he didn't die. He just like
because we got him on the lifeboat, and then we didn't get him shot, which I got him shot the first time.
Yeah, but I think it's interesting because we got so little of him, and obviously you know him better because you did multiple playthroughs. But he does stick very close to the vest for like the white rich playboy type. Mm-hmm. Like there are some, I really enjoy his humor and the jokes he made, and that like made me warm up to him a little bit. But I do remember Matan playing Fliss, and we were like super shipping them together.
Yeah.
Fliss,
I think go ahead.
Okay.
Or I'll just say mine real quick. I think, like you said, you didn't get much of Connie because he leaves in the first part, and you didn't get to see the part where he's on the ship. But I mean, I love Connie. He's a great character, and I think if you get to see the parts where he goes to the ship, you get so much more out of him, and that's when I started to really like him, when we got him on the ship.
Mm-hmm.
He's less of an asshole.
Yes. He grows.
I really liked Fliss. I'm glad. We picked these characters basically randomly, but I really am glad I ended up with her.
I wanted Connie. I was gonna get him to the ship, and then I failed getting him to the ship.
he survived at least, like we
He
said.
did. Well, until that ending last scene, he might not have survived.
Unclear.
TBD.
So, and those aren't spoilers for anyone asking. Any character can die or live.
Yeah.
It's up to how you play the game.
Right.
We just
Exactly. There's so many options.
We played it fucked.
So Fliss, she was the captain of the ship. She wasn't previously friends with these people. She was captain of the boat that they were taking out to go scuba diving, and then they end up finding.
Was it called?
Yes.
The Duke of Milan.
The Duke of Milan. That was it.
And they end up finding this abandoned ship, and getting captured and kidnapped. But I was so mad. I messed up. I hit every single QuickTime event. I was killing it, and then I missed one. I missed one QTE, and I died. It was the most important one.
Yep, and I made the mistake as Brad. I gave him a weapon, which ended up killing. He killed Fliss with it.
By accident.
Yeah, this game's brutal. Yeah. Like it's hard. If you miss one QuickTime event, you can get someone killed, which is rough.
Mm-hmm. What you guys were saying about normalizing inclusion, I really like that point, and I think this is sort of a nuanced argument, so I'll try to be deliberate. The inclusion is not an agenda, and inclusion is not political, or should not be political. Mm-hmm. And I think there's a lot of different ways to approach that. We'll get into some other games that we talk about where sort of their identity as a Black person is inextricable from the story, and on a surface level. It is clear that this identity is significant. And in this game, while there are racial dynamics at play, it is more subtext. And I think for the people who rail against SJWs and fight diversity in gaming, I think this is an example of one that would hopefully bring them around and is more palatable to them because it is not directly about race, which I think there's a place for both of these kinds of games.
Yeah, and I imagine even with our white characters, it's Julia and Alex, like they are maybe getting married, right? And so even with this interracial couple, like you have to imagine like these are people who've had discussions about race, like they're good, they're sorted. Like I can't imagine a world in which I'd be going scuba diving with my brother if he was a racist, right? And he hated my fiance, like that wouldn't be happening. So I think it is really subtle. And like it's like the small details, right? Like when Fliss is like, oh, we need to call this in, but the other ones are just like, nah, like let's go explore. Where's your sense of adventure? And even that, like it could be about race, right? But it also just doesn't have to be.
Yeah, and I think like you said, like they're getting married. I don't think there's a world where they haven't discussed racial issues yet, Like they've been together for a long time. That's obviously, and especially because Julia and Connie come from a rich family, I think that even adds more to the tension there. And like we don't really see it in the game, but I think it's there, it's present.
Yeah, it is a white person hiring a Black person to do a job, and then on top of that, then they get kidnapped by a Black person because the white person is flaunting his money. So like even if they're not saying it, as I said, like I think the not saying it makes it more palatable to the people who are opposed to the inclusion of diversity in gaming, which is ridiculous. But I also think, again, it's important. The normalization is significant. And that's one thing I think this game does very well.
Yeah, Fliss was hands down my favorite.
Oh yeah, she was great.
GG, best girl. Next.
Yeah, next we have Spider-Man Miles Morales, which has not come out yet. It was just announced for PlayStation 5. I'm definitely excited for this game. I'm wearing my Into the Spider-Verse shirt. I am a huge Spider-Man fan. The first game was incredible.
Yeah. One of the only games I have platinumed. I played that game so much.
Same. I don't know if I platinumed it, but I've gotten a lot.
Yeah, I'm more familiar with the movie than the game. Just like the Spider-Man video game series. But fuck, I'm excited.
Mm-hmm.
Miles was in the first Spider-Man game. Well, I don't want to say the first. This recent one, Insomniac from 2018, I think. Maybe 2017. Miles was a playable character, and he was significant. Again, they don't talk a ton about race directly in that game, and Miles is a really interesting character just in whatever media he appears in, because he is half black, half Hispanic, and his father is a cop. So I mean, again, Into the Spider-Verse, if you haven't seen Into the Spider-Verse, absolutely watch it. It's on Netflix. One of the best animated films of all time. I will stand by that. And that movie deals a lot with race and deals a lot with the law and like, you know, Peter Parker is the original Spider-Man, you know, a pretty, you know, nerdy white straight guy, and Miles, I think, is kind of representative of like a new era for Spider-Man. Not that Peter's gone, but Miles, especially because he's been around for a while, but his rise to prominence in recent years has sort of shown sort of like, this is the world now. Like, this is a more holistic look at what New York City looks like.
I think it's also really important because all these superhero games and movies, they're based on comics from a long time ago, most of which were stolen from or you know, the original content creators were people of color, and these white companies were like, hey, I'll buy this off of you for not enough. But I'm really excited for Miles. I loved him in the movie, and I think that's something unique when you're getting a game with characters that are so young. So, you know, like The Last of Us with Ellie, the first one, or even Clementine, they're still figuring out who they are, and in like really high-touch situations. So it forces them, like, they can't not think about race and sexuality. Which gives us like a very organic lens into thinking about that too.
Yeah, and I think it also goes back to what Matan was talking about earlier, where like it's kind of baiting in people who may be against this idea, which again is like insane that people would be against this, but like against the idea of like diversifying video games, because it like gives you this game like Spider-Man, the first one, where Spider-Man is this white male that is this beloved character that we've had for like years now and that people love, and like white male gamers will love playing as him. But then also we bring in Miles Morales now, and it's like it just normalizes having these characters, which I think is incredible.
Definitely. I just looked at the first appearance of Miles Morales, August 2011. So he is still a pretty new character.
Wow, I did not realize he was that new.
Yeah. I mean, it's about fucking time.
Yeah.
Right? Like, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, because again, that movie displays it. We have so many spider people now in Marvel. You know, we've got, you know, Spider-Gwen and
Spider-Pig, not even Spider-People.
True. Penny Parker, there's all sorts of clones of Peter, and Peter's still significant. I think, again, a lot of the rhetoric in this sort of anti-diversity discussion is that it's sort of replacing the white people, and that suddenly like white men aren't going to have a place in games. That is so far from the truth. Like, Peter still exists. This is just giving more people voices, more communities representation. I mean, again, they've got Silk, who's one of my favorites. She's, I think, Korean, and then Miles, and as I mentioned a couple already. I think it's just great that we're getting to see and play as even more of these characters.
I agree.
Yeah, I mean, personally, I'm more of like the burn it all down type, right? So like, yeah, let's not have any white characters for a year. Let's do it, sure. Because we've had like only white characters for the last however many years.
Exactly.
Right.
You know, realistically, that's not going to happen, but these games are making really good strides. And I'm happy they're happening.
That makes I hear what you're saying. Next, sort of similarly, there was some discussion when the game was announced about sort of the size of the game. They kind of touted it as seeming like it's a full sequel, but they came out and said it's not, and it seems like it's about the size of Uncharted Lost Legacy, like a $40-ish game that is going to reuse a lot of assets. I mean, they've already designed most of the city. They're putting snow on it and giving it a Christmas coat of paint, but a lot of the legwork has been done for them. So I'm still very excited nonetheless. Like I'm still really excited to be getting this game.
And this could also be their attempt to test the waters with making a game like this. And let's buy it, let's support it as much as we can, and hopefully we'll get another one with him.
Totally. Of course, that leads into the next game, which is Uncharted Lost Legacy.
Yes. Probably what we want to talk about first is the sad elephant in the room with digital blackface.
The sad elephant.
I'm the sad elephant. Because the characters themselves, right, if you remove them from the creators and the actors, right, we're following two women. One, that's awesome, fuck yeah. But also two women of color. And then, if you do your research on the game a little bit, right? Like if I went into it blind and knew nothing about the studio and knew nothing about the voice actors, I probably wouldn't have any idea that Laura Bailey was the voice actress. And I love Laura. And this is not like a slight on actors, because actors need work, right? Like, what are you going to do?
They also don't know most of the time what they're signing into, and then they sign their contract, and then they're told that they're playing this black character, and they can't really back out of it.
Yeah,
or else they lose a lot of jobs and get kind of blacklisted in the industry. So it's really not the actor's fault. It's more on the studios and casting.
Well, I don't want to. I think in this case that is true, given what you told me. Apparently, Laura Bailey in an interview said she didn't know that Nadine was black until she'd already performed and signed the contract. But I don't want to totally absolve the actors in general. I think
it's case by case.
Yeah, it really
is. It's still, on the whole, especially with the Oscars, I mean, it's reflective of a trend in Hollywood, and Hollywood, not just film, but Hollywood games, because, that's happening in LA too. Unfortunately, of just all this whitewashing. And like, if I was just sitting down playing Uncharted, I'd be like, oh, this woman sounds black. She's probably voiced by a black woman. Not the case. It's aggravating.
Nadine is the character, Nadine Ross, is South African, and their racial politics are real fucked and real complex, sort of in similar but in some ways notably different from American race relations. And I think
different for sure.
They didn't really talk about it, and that's okay. I don't think they go to Africa, but they never go to South Africa, right, in any of the Uncharted games?
Yeah, I don't think so.
Okay. I think that would have been an opportunity to talk about it a little more, especially because, again, the two main characters are two women of color. What's the Chloe? Chloe is Indian Australian and also voiced by a white woman, Claudia Black. And again, their performances are fantastic, but that's not really the point. I think it shows sort of it's just, there are people of color who are actors, who are voice actors, who are looking for work. Like, it's not like they didn't have options. Naughty Dog really should have made the initiative not only to write in more characters of color, but even for the characters of color that they have, cast them as people of color. It's not too hard.
Yeah,
no, it's really not.
Yeah, I think this game is incredible, but if you look at Uncharted, the series, it's very white. Like, all the main characters are white.
Which is probably why they felt like they had to do Lost Legacy, right? Like, let's have women and let's have non-white women. Which, is something but also, you know, just admitting that they fucked up, right? Like we were talking about earlier, is important. Not to say I don't love Naughty Dog, I do. But this is definitely a misstep in terms of casting.
Mm-hmm.
And basically the only two black women in Last of Us both die.
Spoiler alert. I think every black character in Last of Us dies.
Yeah, I think
Sam and Henry who die.
Mm-hmm. Oh, that's true. And Sam and Henry, they also do die. That's true.
Mm-hmm.
That's like the trope with like horror things, right?
Exactly,
it's always the black character that dies first. And I wish we didn't play into it.
True, and it didn't feel referential. You know, it didn't feel aware of that.
I mean, yeah. To be fair, in The Last of Us, basically everyone dies.
Right.
Fair point. But yeah, there are some. You know, a bunch of the a good handful of the white characters survive. Again,
and
our main characters.
Also at the end with having Joel shoot Marlene was a little into that. Yeah.
Sorry. Yeah. As you mentioned, spoiler alert. This is for Last of Us 1, which came out 7 years ago. So I think
we're
probably fine.
Last of Us 2 for now.
Yeah.
Yeah. Little update on that. Best Buy really screwed me.
Matan, now we can never get sponsored by Best Buy.
Yeah.
Come on, look what you just did.
Best Buy, see me.
Okay, GameStop screwed me, so.
But you got it from your sister.
Yeah, I did. I luckily did get the game, so I have been able to play. I am deep in the game, and I.
I think. Are we talking about it next week? Is that what we're committing to?
I think as long as we're all finished with the game by next week.
Mm-hmm. It might be 1 week or 2.
And we'll have a special guest with us who's a friend who also played the game. Well,
I want to do it soon, so maybe we just torture Matan and sub in our friend.
I think I'm past halfway through. Okay, I think, Adrianna, you're probably around the halfway point.
I'm close to it. I would say I'm about like a little over a third.
Then maybe I'm about the halfway point.
We will discuss this before next week.
Yeah, and hopefully we will still be keeping that lens. You know, I think it's really important that in our moment right now, we're definitely really focused on Black lives and the failures of our country, but at the same time, you know, it should be something that we're thinking about always.
Totally agree.
Especially for our podcast, and we're all white passing people, and especially in games in general, more so with tabletop games, which is more my area. I feel like it's super whitewashed, and I really enjoy being able to talk about these unique instances that kind of give us a reason to hope to do better, right? So that we don't have to burn it all down like I kind of want to sometimes.
Absolutely.
But yeah, I get what you're saying, because games just in general are very whitewashed. Like when we first pitched this idea, like you said, Walking Dead was the first thing that came to mind, and then I had to take a moment to be like, okay, what other games have Black protagonists? And I think that's a big issue in the gaming industry, because I think about my favorite video games, and most of them don't have Black protagonists. They'll have Black characters, but like The Last of Us, they usually die, or they're usually just very small side characters.
Speaking again, you know, as you mentioned, being a woman, though you are arguably white passing, you are a woman of color. Speaking about being a woman of color in gaming, and particularly tabletop, I want to hear about Wintermoor Tactics Club.
Yes. So this is a game that Matan recommended to me. I was really surprised I hadn't heard about it, because this game is fucking amazing. So it is a mix of a visual novel with like your standard role-playing game, with like heavy flavor of Dungeons and Dragons, which is, you know, my jam. But, you know, of course in the game, it's really cute. It's set in like 1984-ish or 85. And instead of D&D, they have curses and catacombs, which I love. And you play so you're at the school Wintermoor, which is a private academy somewhere where it snows. I think maybe can't. But what I love is you start with 3 people in the Tactics Club, is what they call it for their gaming group. You start with 3 people, and throughout the course of the game, you know, you can recruit other people to join you. And the plot itself is really dynamic. I love the storytelling. But what I'm most taken with, because you don't see this a lot in tabletop or in games, video games, but the main character that you play as, Alicia, she's the young Black woman. This is high school, by the way, so you know these are teenagers of varying ages. And then the other 2 characters that you start off with, one, the kind of like the leader of the group, he's Colin. He's a white man, very adorable, very nice. And then Jacob, who, unlike Alicia, he's kind of her foil in some ways. Alicia is very buttoned up. She follows the rules. She's a big stickler. Her parents have been saving forever to send her here to, you know, give her a good education. Whereas Jacob, I believe he's also Black. They don't state it, so he may be mixed. But his parents are rich. He breaks the rules all the time. You know, we get to decide whether or not to help him graffiti the wall outside one of the buildings. And you know, he gets away with it because his parents donate so much money. But what I love about having both of them is that you get to see 2 really different sides of what it's like. Not to say, and you know, Jacob, he's doing all this because fuck the man in general, but also fuck the white man, right? And I've been going to the school. We have to remember, you know, it's supposed to be set in 1980. Obviously, like we have a diverse cast in there, which I really love. But like, this is not how the actual 1980 would have been. You probably wouldn't have had people of color playing Dungeons and Dragons, let alone women. The first edition of Dungeons and Dragons had a harlot table, which I suggest you look up, where you can roll a die and generate random encounters with harlots, or basically a code word for prostitutes. Yeah, I have a lot of thoughts on D&D, but I really appreciate this game for kind of giving us an alternate setting to explore some of D&D's failures. It's made by Versus Evil, the company that did Wintermoor. I kind of hope they come out with Curses and Catacombs as a game itself, because I'm loving playing as Alicia. I'm loving watching her explore the world. The game itself, because it's a visual novel and also an RPG, it goes by, like, the chapters are like a full day of high school. And so we see her go back to her dorm room and she falls asleep and she has nightmares. And I think that is what really brings it into the category of Black Lives Matter, because we see her go through so much anxiety. There is someone she looks up to in school. I don't remember her name, but she is the student council president, and she's also a young Black girl, and Alicia feels a lot of guilt, like, I'm not doing enough. And I think that's something minorities struggle with a lot, especially, you know, I would say maybe, I'm not Black, I can't speak to that experience. I'm familiar with it a lot for, you know, model minorities. For a lot of my Asian friends, they definitely have that pressure. I do too with my own mom, but I think it's really useful to kind of be able to step into Alicia's shoes and take a look at what's going on, especially right now. It's a really new game. It came out last month, at the beginning of the month. It's coming to Switch soon, which I'm really excited for. So keep your eye out. It's also not too expensive. I think it's maybe $15 on Steam, and it went on sale recently. So if you have a chance, it's a really fun play. It's not too long of a game.
The combat, it's tiles and turn-based, is that right?
Mm-hmm.
Right.
Yeah, so it is turn-based, like JRPG style. But not all of it is combat, right?
Right. I did recommend it to Adrianna, but the only reason I actually heard about it was because I got targeted ads for it on Instagram right before it came out, which is one of the few times that those our corporate overlords have gotten it right. It does seem up my alley. I actually haven't played it yet. I've been saving, I was saving for Last of Us, so I haven't purchased a lot of games recently, but I really would like to play it just because it looks so interesting.
It is also beautiful.
Yeah,
it is
gorgeous.
Like, the art in the game is absolutely amazing. I just, like, I'm into graphics and lighting and everything, and as we all know, as film majors, I'm sure, certain lighting makes people of color, darker skin tones look better. And so a lot of Alicia's like her accessories, like her glasses and her earmuffs, because we're in winter, are like blue toned. And I like that a lot.
That's not even something I
really
thought.
Cool.
That's not even something I thought about. That's really interesting.
Yeah, like their art is really detailed. They do a really good job with it. And like a small note that just like I love to see in games, right? Like when she goes to bed, she's wearing like she has her hair all done up, you know, in the oh God, what do you call it? I don't know
like
English.
The cap thing, yeah.
Yeah, she has her hair in her cap, all like treated and everything.
Yeah.
She's in her little bed all tucked up. And I just, you know, it's like the small details that really matter.
For sure.
And it's just normal, right? Like I didn't have to like think about it, like, oh, why is she wearing a bonnet on her head? I'm like, oh yeah.
That's awesome. I didn't know about the game until you guys talked about it for this podcast. So I think I'll have to check it out. It sounds really awesome.
Yeah. I think
it was really fun.
It's on PC, it's on Steam. I think it could do really well on Switch. I think it's sort of a great.
It will. It is not intensive for your computer to run. Because the graphics, you know, it's not like it's 3D or anything. And there are a lot of JRPGs on the Switch anyways.
Totally.
You should get it.
Okay. Which one of you guys wants to talk about hair now?
I talked for a while, so probably Kate.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, I mean, this is one I found out about a few years ago, actually in a class that me and Adrianna met in.
Yes.
Yeah, and it's just go ahead.
I just want to give a big shout out actually, because we're going to talk about Hair Na, and then we're going to talk about a Twitch streamer that I found, and both of these were due to the class to the professor who taught the class we met in, because I've taken more of her classes. So I want to shout out Bo Ruberg at UCI. They are amazing. They have a website. It's ourglasslake.com. But they give really good, like I think it's great, especially in lecture situations, to give links to things that you might not find otherwise, and they really promote diversity.
Totally.
That's how I learned about this game and a lot of other stuff. Which
Bo is great. Sorry, the website was ourglasslake, OUR, or just R?
No, our.
Glass-Lake. Okay, great. But Hair Na, Caitlin.
Yeah, so it's a game. I believe it used to be an app on like iPhones. I was not able to find it when I went to look for it recently, but I found it on the computer. And basically what it is you play as a Black woman who is just traveling to different places, and she's swatting away white hands of like people who are trying to touch her hair, because that's been like a common thing. Like white people are always like, oh, I want to touch your hair. I'm sure everyone knows this. And so I think it's just like an incredible game to just kind of bring awareness to that, because I think a lot of like white people are very like naive to that until they're told, which is like a problem. And then I think this like game also just is great for Black women to have, to just, it's fun, like to be able to just have that as a game and like see yourself represented. And yeah, and it was created by a Black woman named Momo Pixel, or that's her handle probably.
Momo Pixel.
That's probably not her.
That'd be a dope last name, dude.
Right. And I think this can also be a good segue into our next part about content creators, because she has an Instagram, and her Instagram, I was just looking it up, it is Momo Pixels, and she posts a lot of stuff on there, and she's really cool, so you could give her a follow too, and just kind of learn like, or follow what she's doing right now, and just you can check out Hair Na. Yeah, it's a pretty small game. It's just, yeah, there's not like a huge story to it. It's just a little like app type game that you can play, and it's fun.
Yeah, it's short and sweet. I mean, after you complete every level, you get like a response from like one of your friends. I think it's like a context for it. I don't know. Yeah, it's nice. Yeah, it's quick.
Like Caitlin said, we're going to spend a little bit of time talking about content creators related to games. The first one was the Black Girl Gamers group on Twitch. So Adrianna mentioned Professor Bo Ruberg. In their class, we read an article about them, and it was very eye-opening into Twitch as a platform for communities rather than individuals. I guess they used to have a communities tab, like section, and they removed it and changed it into something else that really kind of undid the following that a lot of streamer groups had developed. What do you want to say about it, Adrianna?
Yeah, so Black Girl Gamers, that's their handle at Black Girl Gamers. They're actually streaming right now as we're speaking. So obviously, you know, for everyone listening, this is like 6 days before. But they're pretty active. They have, I think, about like 14K followers. So go give them a follow, show them some love and support. I'm just gonna read their bio. They play so many amazing games. So Black Girl Gamers is an online safe space platform that heightens the visibility of Black women in gaming and advocates for diversity and inclusion. Created by J. Ann Lopez in 2015, we currently have over 6,000 members from all over the world to run amazing IRL events and create online content to support diversity and inclusion in the industry. Yeah, like Matan was saying, I probably because actually of the communities tab, this is not a channel I might have stumbled across on organically. I think, you know, with the communities tab, you had a great opportunity, and that's part of the pull of gaming, right? Like find people like me, find people who like to play farming simulation games, right? Find people who like to do whatever, or find people who are Black and go support them, because they don't get enough love. Black Girl Gamers, they're funny, they're hilarious. Right now they're playing, I forgot the name of the game. It's been on my wish list. You have to outdrink Satan to escape hell.
After Party.
After Party, yes. But they play a ton of different types of games. They did Pokemon a couple days ago. But yeah, just more cool people doing cool things.
Awesome. Yeah, next one. This is someone I found recently on Instagram. She does a lot of cosplays, and they're really awesome. Her handle is Snitchery. And we can like tag these people and have them in the bio so you guys can find them. But she's really awesome. She's done some video game cosplays, like a lot of like just like nerdy cosplays. There's like Pokemon, Avatar: The Last Airbender. I think I saw like Kim Possible. She's really just awesome. I really love her stuff. And I think it's worth mentioning because she does a lot of video game cosplays. I mean, just in general, it's worth following her because like her cosplays are really cool. Yeah. Then I think the next two are also mine. Do you guys have any more you want to say?
No, yeah, I'm not super familiar with Snitchery, but her cosplays that I looked up for this podcast were very impressive. She does a really great job.
Yeah. Yeah, I especially loved her Katara cosplay. Just because I know, because I used to be into cosplaying a while back. Jesus, how time flies. But there was like a big thing about lighter skinned people cosplaying Katara. But cosplay's tricky. You can't blackface to do a cosplay.
Yeah.
So, but she doesn't, and she has beautiful. The outfit is amazing. So I love that. I always notice Katara cosplays.
Yeah. Yes, cosplay is. I believe. You know what? I should double check this before I commit to it. But I believe that the voice actor of Korra from The Legend of Korra,
Janet Varney.
Yes, she's white, right?
She is, yeah. And so is Katara's voice actor.
Right, Mae Whitman. She's great. There's kind of, it gets kind of. I mean, that's another example of.
Yeah. But Zuko's voice actor is Asian, and
Dante
Bosco.
Yes.
Yeah, Avatar is such an immensely diverse show.
Oh yeah.
It would have been great if they had gotten people a little, and they're not real life cultures. These cultures are heavily inspired by ones in our world, but they aren't real. So I think if they had gotten people who were from communities that a lot of these tribes and groups were based on, I think it would have been. I think that would have been a better idea. That being said, the actors who were in it did a great job with what they had.
I agree. Yeah.
Next up.
Yeah, next, I'm just gonna group these two together, Flitz and Bose, because they both came from Smosh Games, and they have both left Smosh Games to kind of do more of their own things. They both do a lot of like, or at least I know that Flitz does some Twitch streaming, and then Bose has her own podcast channel. It's called Big Mood and she does this with 4 other women, and 3 of them are women of color, which is awesome. And then both of them are currently doing D&D campaigns with Smosh Games, or at least members of Smosh Games. And that's really awesome. I haven't watched all of it. I watched a little bit. My character in our D&D campaign is actually kind of based off of Flitz's character, which is a little fun fact. I watched the first campaign and I was like, oh my god, his character is amazing. And that kind of like inspired my character.
I wanted to interject. I watched a little bit of Big Mood to prepare for this, and it was really entertaining. It's very sex positive, and they sort of talk a lot about these issues, racial issues and what's going on. And they have a lot of female guests on. I know I saw they had Pokimane on, and they've had a couple others. I really like the podcast. I found it because of this episode, but I'm going to continue listening.
Yeah, I will admit, once Bose left Smosh, I kind of didn't follow her as much, and I feel like that was a mistake because I really liked her on Smosh Games. And I haven't listened to this podcast. I've heard of it, but I think I'll give it a listen. It sounds really awesome.
I think that's the importance. That's sort of kind of the reason we're doing this, is we are trying at least to use our privilege to amplify the voices of Black people, particularly Black Americans. And again, in doing the research for this, I've discovered so many more creators that I am interested in. And I think our hope is that, you, viewer or listener, will also check these people out and give them a chance.
Yeah, I mean, I think in our, ideal world, we'd be probably pausing podcasting, but we're not exactly popular. So it's not like that would, in theory, do anything. Right. Because it's definitely important that we let people of color speak for themselves. But we're new. Maybe no one's listening to us anyways out there in the void. And this is also just for us kind of a good way to process our own failures, what we can do better, and like Matan was saying, learn about cool new people that we should follow.
Absolutely.
Yeah, and I totally agree. And I do think it is also important to like you were saying, recognize our failures, and I think that's a lot of what this is. And just like the failures in general. Where am I trying to go with this? Like, just realizing I had the idea in my mind and then it just left my mind, but like realizing that it's something you have to work towards. Like, Black protagonists aren't just out, like they're not in every game. It's something that you have to actively say, like, I want to make sure that I am being inclusive in the games I'm playing and the people I'm following, because I recently looked at my followers and the people I'm following, and I follow way more white people than I do people of color. And that was something I actively said, okay, I need to go through and find these people of color that I find inspiring and I really like their stuff, because that's how you grow and how you learn and how you fix your mistakes of your past. And I think that's kind of what we're doing here. And yeah, like you said, why should you listen to like white people? Like, we should probably just be quiet when this whole like with everything, because our voices don't really matter right now. And I think that's a really important point, but I think it's also important for us to like not preach to people, but like, because we can be like an inspiration to other people who may not realize yet what their faults are, and maybe they can see our journey and that can help them get there.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I also, while we were talking, I was actually thinking, I did not put her on here, but a content creator that I'm a big fan of, Mika Burton, famous in her own right. I mean, I'm be surprised if people haven't heard of Mika Burton, but I love her. As you all know, D&D is like my thing. She got started on Critical Role for a while. She does her own stuff, obviously. Shoutcasting, streaming. She's epic.
So I was just looking into her. Yes, I do know her. She is LeVar Burton's daughter.
Yeah. Yes.
I had no idea. Yeah, it
I mean,
says here.
she's more than LeVar Burton's daughter.
Yeah.
Right, but I didn't. Of course, I'm sorry. I should have phrased that differently. I knew her. I had no idea she had any connection to him.
Yeah, no, it's amusing for me because my last name is also Burton.
Right.
That's fun. Thanks, white man, for taking over my name.
You're welcome.
Yeah, no, my mother thought it would be beneficial to use my non-involved parents' last name.
Right.
Shit's wild, man.
Yep.
Shit's wild.
Shit certainly is. Shit is nothing if not wild. The last content creator, this is the one that I added that I really wanted to talk about, is Michael Tucker from Lessons from the Screenplay. He makes some of the best video essays out there, largely about film and then a little bit about TV, but he has one video, because this is essentially a gaming podcast, he has a video on The Last of Us, in which he interviews Neil Druckmann and talks particularly about the intro to that game, and just Michael's writing and editing are just exceptional. He makes such an interesting case. He dives into, I mean, again, I've played Last of Us twice. I love that game to death. One of the all-time greats. I love it. He presents things that I had never even thought about, and is very convincing, clear, and concise in his writing. I absolutely recommend you check out Lessons from the Screenplay on YouTube, because he makes some of the best stuff out there.
Amazing. Yeah, and like Caitlin, I think, was saying, hopefully we will be linking to these in the comment section.
There. Can you repeat that?
Or in the post. Like Caitlin said, hopefully we will be linking to all these awesome people when we post or in the comments.
They'll be in the description.
Yeah.
All right. Well, I think that just about does it for this episode. In summation, Black Lives Matter.
Yeah, go protest if you can.
Yes.
Yep. Shop at Black-owned businesses. Go to protests. Donate
donate money
to bail funds.
You can.
Call your representatives.
Do what you can. Yeah, do what you can.
Thank you guys so much for watching and listening. We are always learning. We're individuals who are always trying to educate ourselves and improve our outlook and our positions. So if there's anything, particularly this goes out to Black listeners and watchers, if there's anything that we can do to better talk about these issues, please let us know in the comments. And we'll see you next week.
Yeah.
Love you. Stay safe.
Bye.